Well, good morning and welcome to Lisbon. For our customers and for our partners who are with us, and hopefully even some new customers, thank you very much for joining us here at number 7, I think actually, of our Fujitsu World Tour that we take around the region and around the world. We've been listening really carefully to you. We've been working with our partners to listen to you as well, and we've been doing surveys, and I also read a thing called our Voice of Our Customer survey that we take pretty much every week from different customers around the region. And part of that Voice of Our Customer tells us is, Fujitsu, we need you to help us. We need you to bring that technology, that services, and make a difference to our business. Move it away from just PowerPoint to actually doing something on the ground. That's what our customers are saying to us. That's what you're saying to us. And as part of that investment, so part of that listening, and I do think we have tried to listen very carefully, but it's hard, and we have to work together to make those things happen for our customers. One of the things we've done is to invest in something called a Digital Transformation Center, DTCs. We opened our latest version of this last week in London. We have one in Munich, we have one in New York, and we're about to open up several others around our region here in Europe. But it's not just a fancy room. It's not a nice room with coffee and cakes and we come and bring you into it. It is a place where we co-create together. We come up with answers to really difficult problems. In fact, we might fail. And part of the reason is we want to fail. Because unless we are pushing the boundaries really well, we will not make those big differences in your business, in our society, and in some of the big issues our globe have got. And all of you are here representing different industries for us, and Carlos has talked about some of those in the early part. But the DTCs are part of our answer to listen to us, engage with us, Fujitsu. Now, over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk you through a little bit of some of our strategy, some of the changes that we've made, some of the investments that we've made as well. And there's a short answer and a long answer. And I'm hopefully you're going to allow me to give you a slightly longer answer as we go through some of the topics. There's an image at the end which I really like. And in fact, as we've used it around the region, our customers have really taken to it as a way of how do you learn to be an impactful digital organization. So there's a very old problem when you're running events like this, which is, what's the optimum way to organize yourself? If I'm running Fujitsu World Tour in 2 places, it's pretty easy to do. I go on a Monday, I'm back on a Wednesday. 3 places, there's a few more. When there's 28 locations, different continents, different borders, different regulation, it's a really hard problem. In fact, the numbers of combinations that you would have to go through is really large. In fact, it's that large when you end up with 28. Now, if there's any mathematicians in the room, you might tell me that maths is wrong, but I'm assured by our mathematicians, our data scientists, that if you try and get the optimum route around 28 locations, that is the number of combinations. Now, when you have that simple problem, it's called the traveling salesperson's problem, or in my example, Fujitsu World Tour, you don't use normal technology for that. You don't just throw that problem at a really big and fast computer. Because if you did, it would take probably 1,000 years. So we all know, when we're trying to plan our holidays and do different things, you don't use a computer to do that. You use your experience, you use rule of thumb. However, the problem I'm trying to demonstrate is real life, because we have some very complicated issues in your business, in our society, and in the globe. So let me try and make it a little bit more real. Great picture. Singapore Harbour. About 1,500 ships per day are trying to get into the Singapore Harbour. That's about 500,000 ships a year. Big ones, little ones. Some with dangerous cargo on them, some with normal cargo on them. Some of them from very different countries where there's different rules in terms of import and export. How do you bring all of that together? How do you manage it? And for some of the colleagues in the room here today, be you in rail, be you in public service, be you in healthcare, oil exploration, these are problems that you're dealing with every day. And our job at Fujitsu is, how do we work with you to solve those problems? Now, those are problems that we know about. The other ones, of course, are the ones we don't know about. And we'll come back to the DTCs and what have you later. So part of our investments, and for those of you who have been looking at the markets, we announced a few weeks ago a thing called Digital EMEIA. Now, it's not a very interesting picture. You might be sitting there saying, like, Paul, that's just a chip, and why is that important? And, you know, I've got other things that are worrying me. But Digital EMEIA is how we start to get towards quantum computing. Quantum computing is unbelievably fast. The application of quantum computing in different industries for different problems would allow us to solve those problems very, very quickly, like in seconds, not in weeks and years. You think about the DNA, mapping out our DNA as humans took a long, long time. But the concept of quantum computing is excellent. Only problem is, it's not here yet. So what are you talking about, Paul? So the limits of the possible can only be defined by just going a little bit further. Now, we can't make a quantum computer yet because it has to be cooled at absolute zero, for example. Very hard to get electricity and energy to move at those levels. But what we can do is just get a little bit closer, just move it a little bit further along, working with customers and partners. And this is where Digital EMEIA comes in. So we've developed a piece of hardware called a Digital EMEIA chip. It is very close to modeling the characteristics of quantum computing. We're working with a company called 1Qubit in Canada, who have designed software to take advantage of this technology, which again mirrors it more towards quantum computing. You think, well, okay, that's very interesting. So what? How do you take this technology and the software with 1Qubit and bridge to the future? So this is our bridge to the future. It's a bridge very close to here. We've announced this work with 1Qubit. They're based in Vancouver. We've set up a center in Vancouver, combining a number of their people and our people, with some other partners. For those of you who look on the web, you'll see there's a number of organizations who are invested in that. One of them is a very large bank. So now you start to think hardware technology, software technology, and customers combining together to solve real problems. And what we're trying to do is to bridge towards, just to move that angle over towards quantum computing. We can't get there, but we can get a bit closer. And then it's about, how do we work with you to apply this technology to your problems? Now, when we've talked to customers, The benefit of this technology, we think and they think, is that it will make a massive impact on business performance in terms of solving those problems. One of the challenges for us, though, is making that available to everybody, hence getting it into the cloud. And we're going to talk a bit about the cloud a little bit later on. Making this available as a technology to you, for your people to use globally, really important to us. The other points on the slide, however, are all about the technology. The engagement with 1 qubit, though, I believe shows Fujitsu partnering again. We are a great company to partner. You will see some of our partners, and a big one for us clearly is Intel this week, but you will see us working well with partners. And this is where applying this technology really helps us. So let me try and bring it to life in a few places. As we drive our cars or our Teslas or our bicycles, how you get around the city isn't just as simple as having a TomTom device or some other navigation device. EU regulations, rightly, around sustainability, around the impact of cars on the environment, you have to get to a point where the optimum navigation of vehicles around a city. Remember my traveling salesperson, how many cars are in Lisbon, different forms of traffic. That's a big number. Applying quantum computing to that, or digital EMEIA to that, we believe will make a difference sooner rather than later. Think about the healthcare side. I was reading some notes as I was coming over. Cancer treatment. The laser that goes into a body to deal with a tumor hits other parts of the body. What is the optimum route to minimize other tissue damage in a body? Very complicated mathematically, very complicated from a technology standpoint. Again, working with health authorities, working with universities, we believe the application of this technology can make a big difference. Then you go into financial services. What's the optimum route? What's the optimum portfolio mix? Large-scale investments, small-scale investments. Do you hold them for 5 years, 10 years? What's the regulation? It's a very complicated, for those of you in financial services, you'll know it far better than I, but it's very, very complicated. And the final one, and Carlos talked a little bit about it earlier, was about manufacturing. What is the optimum? What is the best way? How do you connect your supply chain to your manufacturing processes? Again, multiple contact points, multiple data points. How do we optimize those, minimize costs, increase efficiency and productivity, and make you more competitive? Again, we believe that applying this technology with you in the right places, and it's important about the right places. This is not a panacea for everything. But we believe will make a big, big difference. So that's connecting digital EMEIA and software with 1 qubit, working with the universities in North America and Canada, and working with you, our customers and partners, we believe can make a big, big difference. However, when we survey our customers, and we ask our customers, all this digital thing, all this PowerPoint, and you hear it from our partners, be it at Microsoft or VMware, you hear what IBM are saying. We went and asked our customers, we asked you in different parts of the world, and guess what? We got told that 90% of you feel you have a reasonably clear view of your digital strategy, in your terms. It's not in what McKinsey's or Harvard or somebody else says, but in your terms, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. And 88% of you feel that your senior team, your leadership team, have a clear view on the ground, not just in PowerPoint, of what a digital project looks like. Now you'd look at that and say, well, that all feels pretty good, actually. However, 74% of you feel they're not connected. It's this little digital project, that little digital project. It's not connected to an overarching strategy for your business. The bottom one, 72% of you feel that the projects do not really mean meaningful innovation. And that's innovation that lives more than just a week. It's about innovation for the future of our businesses. And I'm very proud to say that Fujitsu, having been in this world for quite some years now, and here in Europe for the best part of 40 years, 50 years, and I think Carlos had a date there about Fujitsu here in Portugal, we're here for the long term. We're here for the long term. And so that bottom statistic is a real worry as you try to build sustainable employment, sustainable innovation that continues to drive your business. Now, our survey told us a number of things. So then the question is, what do we do with it? Yeah? So 2 other data points for you. This culture, is it really in our people? And for those of you who have got children, or for those of you who have got younger colleagues and employees, this is a very important characteristic as we look at younger people and also older employees. How do we build the culture in our organizations to take advantage of digital innovation? And seeing your company's ability to change, again, has been a big issue around digital transformation. The top one that really worries me and should worry you is the failure rate. So this is about doing things, they don't quite work, and on average, the survey told us it cost about €500,000. Now that's a lot of cash. That is a lot of cash in a very competitive market if we're not making sustainable impacts. So I've talked a little bit about some technology that we've invested in, which we believe is making a difference. I've talked a little bit about what you and your peer group around the globe are saying around digital transformation. I'm now going to change the topic to data. And if you bear with me, I'll connect all of this up as we get to the end. So data. So people love data in my industry. We talk about big data, little data. You know, you just got to gather all this data. And again, our customers are saying to us, so what? What are you going to do with all this data? How do you use that data to make a real difference? It's not just having lots of data for the sake of it. It's about using that data to produce business insights and change what you do. And the images you see on there are some of the places, and several of you who've had your phones going off and on your phones, you're creating data. You're creating a digital footprint. You're creating more information about where you are, what you're doing. And what's important then is how do we gather that data in a safe and secure way, in a respectful way for our rules and regulations here in Europe, and use it to make a business difference. Now, most data is unstructured. That picture is a very hard picture for a computer to comprehend. Structured data is fine. Database column A, column Z, row 1, row 2, very easy to understand. Unstructured data, massively challenging to gather, massively challenging to use. Our job in Fujitsu with you is to make sense of that, and how do we marshal that to produce an outcome for you. And when people talk about big data and little data, the example that I like to use is an artist, because not all data is the same. Not all of those colors are the same. And if you were trying to have a picture in your head around data, I think the artist palette with the picture and the colors, rather than everything being beige, I don't know if beige works all the time, but everything being beige is just not very differentiated. But getting data, using data to drive real insight, very, very important. So let me give you a couple of examples of how we've done that. The very first video, for those of you who were looking at it carefully, these beautiful wind farms. These are enormous things. This company who made this one is called a company called Siemens Gamsa. Those fins can be up to 75 or 100 meters in length. These wind farms are designed to last for about 25 to 40 years. Once you've built one of these on land, or for those of you who have been in Copenhagen and looked outside of Copenhagen, you see the wind farms as you fly in the sea. These are hard things to maintain. The last thing you want to do when you've built one of those is to have to go back and fix it. And how effective that wind farm is all about the quality of the production. Now, before, Siemens used to have engineers for several weeks walking down 75 meters looking for defects. It took them a long time. It also wasn't very rewarding for highly paid and skilled engineers. Working together, the important thing, together with Siemens, we've made a massive difference to how these things are quality checked. In fact, we've saved about 35,000 man-hours a year. Now, that's a lot of man-hours. But we've applied AI technology. We fed it, because you have to feed these engines. We fed it with a lot of data, and it learned. And what it learned was, it then guided the engineer to block number 725A. That's the block that we have a problem in. Not the whole 75 meters. Massive difference to the client. Not just in production, but then how do you maintain this? Do you have to send engineers out in the middle of winter into Copenhagen Bay to fix one of these things when the UN and the EU want us to use less coal-fired power and more sustainable power? So I think it's a great example of co-creation and getting these things together. We have a case study as well for that around hopefully today. So this is all then about how do we bring value, left-hand side, so looking at your data. How is it created? How do we learn? How do we look for those patterns? And how do we drive those outcomes? That's taking it from PowerPoint into a real difference in your business. And there are lots of other examples. Transforming data into value. And I would suggest, I'd be provocative and saying to you colleagues in the room and to our partners, it's not just about having data for data's sake. It's about grabbing that data, top left, wind farms, and using it to drive a business outcome. But we recognize from our experience so far that sometimes it will be failure. And we've got to be comfortable with that. We have to be comfortable that sometimes it will fail and we won't get it. There's a one there on shipping, which is the top right-hand picture. That's a Japanese shipping company that we've been working with, which takes currents, engine age, efficiency, quality of fuel, load factors, busyness or not of sea lanes, to make a big difference to the efficiency and the timeliness of the shipping company. The one there on security, for those of you who've got any time and effort in and around cybersecurity, if we can't, as a society, find a way to apply artificial intelligence to cybersecurity, we're in a lot of trouble, because you can't create enough of cyber technicians in the world to deal with the issues that we're going to have in this area. All the data we've just created, all the devices that we have, how do you secure that? How do we look after that? One way that we're trying to do, and I know some of our partners are as well, is applying AI to cybersecurity, looking for patterns. And it's about the multitude of those patterns that tell us and guide our technicians to where the problems could be. It won't always be right, but it saves us looking into a mass of data with regards to cybersecurity. Lots of examples there, which I'll leave you to look at offline. So in summary, this whole thing around digital creation, pace of change. I've talked about some of the pace of change. How that pace of change and disruption is transforming your industries and actually my industry. So my industry at times is brutal, both from a product technology standpoint and a services standpoint. However, how we connect our technology and our services with you, your business knowledge, to create a different outcome back to the very start with our digital transformation centers is very, very important. So now I'm going to give you 3 different examples. This is where we've co-created with the client in one of our labs together to drive a business outcome. Some of you might know the company Belfius, financial services in the Benelux region. Their issue was, how do you get people to create an account online on their tablet device or on their mobile phone device? Because everybody's got them, that's what younger people want to use. Issue for Belfius was the regulation. How do I know it's your children, Paul, signing up? Oh, I know, I'll use this picture thing of your iris. That didn't work for them. Working with them, however, we got to a place where we could automate the process. And as my son signed the application form, it wasn't just his handwriting, it was the pressure and the speed of his handwriting that got logged digitally into the application. So then Belfius knew it was him. This became so good for them, they've had 1,000 new name customers log on and create account for them every day. Every day, 1,000 new customers logging in, creating banking applications for Belfius. Now, the next challenge, of course, is Belfius have got to figure out how they sell them other things and do other things. But a really good example of co-creation, applying technology in that way. I'll jump to the whiskey one in the top right. Bean Centauri. If any of you drink whiskey, you'll know that whiskey rises in price the older it gets. For those of you who've ever been in one of these warehouses or distilleries, it's an enormous place with thousands of barrels. And a 12-year-old barrel, which is worth about 250,000 euros, is somewhere here. And the way it's worked in the past is, owner would walk into distillery, "Hi, John, where's the barrel of 12-year-old whiskey X?" Answer, "It's there somewhere, boss. Just give us a little while and we'll find it for you." This is worth 250,000, 300,000 euros. Working with our technology, Globe Ranger, tagging every barrel, visualizing inside the warehouse that data, has allowed that question to say, "John, where's the barrel of 12-year-old whiskey? It's there." Great news, we've got to send that to New York, we've got to send it to Lisbon, wherever. So that's again about bringing our technology with a customer's real business problem and applying it for the future. So what I've tried to walk us through there was a bit of industry, a little bit of solutioning, and working with partners and working with you, and making a breakthrough. Very, very important as we go forward. I started off with talking about you and our customers' feedback to us, our partner feedback to us. what Gartner is saying to us, what the relevant business organisations are saying to us. And they're saying, I want you to know our business. So in addition to DTCs, we've made some changes in Fujitsu around having an industry alignment, public sector, manufacturing, transportation, financial services, automotive. Now, that's not to say that we don't want to be interested in the others, but we're trying to learn really quickly with our customers about some of the big issues in those industries. For those of you who may have seen some announcements about us and VMware and us and Microsoft and the cloud, what again you're seeing from Fujitsu is us saying, how do we work with partners to bring that industry knowledge together to make a difference to your business? Not to try and just say, I've got the latest whizzy little gadget for you. Very, very important. And we do that in our DTCs. Now, I talked a moment ago, or at the very beginning of the session, around our DTCs. It's about open innovation. It's about how do we collaborate and work together. Yes, they are very nice rooms. They have some very clever technology that allows us to collaborate with you. But what we've also learned is to make that really effective, we need lines of business and your technologists and our people together. For those of you who've done any work around agile development and software development, you'll know that you need the team to work together. Not, I write a proposal for you, you send it back to me. I write another proposal for you, you send it back to me. That's the old way of thinking. That's the old way of innovation. This is all about how we together make those differences. And we've seen real success in some of those ones with Belfius and Turi, Siemens as well, of all examples of that. Now, there's a big topic here around expanding AI and expanding digital annealer into other areas. What I'm trying to show you about Fujitsu is that we're not just about here and yesterday. We're spending serious amounts of money on research and development. We are working with our partners, we're collaborating, we're working in joint ventures to bring these things to life. How do we use expandable artificial intelligence for some of the biggest issues we have in society? We're trying to look really quite far in advance. Now, some of these things won't make a difference. That's the purpose of research and development. Some of them just won't make a difference. Some of them absolutely will. We're looking for good scenarios and bad scenarios. We're looking for how do we apply this with each other. And that's you and us together. But some of this innovation, some of this distribution of technology and ways of doing things are not evenly distributed into our society or in our region or in the globe. They are randomly, it is not consistent in its distribution. It's all over the place. Here in Lisbon, very active. You might go to a part of northeast of England, not as quite as active, not as quite as far forward. You'll go to some of the Nordics where they have different challenges with the climate as well. We're not applying our technology and the future of mankind evenly around our society. How do we fix that? How do we start to change some of that? So what we've found is, in our surveys, is value chains. So before, industry was vertical. Now we're seeing it's all about collaboration. It was all about how's my supply chain connected to you, connected to you, connected to you. It's all about the customer or the user experience. It's now very distributed. You can trade from Lisbon to a customer in Finland. You can. So it's now far more distributed in its value chains, which then means the intelligence is also distributed. And if you jump to autonomous vehicles and you think about what it means for us if we get to that stage, do you want this intelligence to be back in the cloud Just give me a second, I'll work out whether you can drive down that road, or does it need to be nearer to the car? You'll hear some of my partners and competitors talk about edge computing. How close can we get the computational power to where the decision needs to be made and use a distributed value chain to understand that there's an incident or there's a fire or there's traffic? Don't turn left, now turn right. And to do that, you need to trust. Now, some of you would have seen the videos of a Tesla running into exploding in California and a fatality, which is terribly, terribly disturbing for us as we think about how do you trust. And that's in cars. How do you distribute trust in financial services? Does blockchain have a part to play in that as we try and connect up trust in a distributed world? Now, we've been doing some work with blockchain technology. We opened in Brussels a few weeks ago, actually, working with the EU, a blockchain innovation center. We're doing some work with AI with one of the Paris universities. So we're trying to work very closely with institutions and universities to come up with answers to some of these problems and apply them to you in your business. Very important, as the boundary between different parts of business and technology are now transformed. It's very, very difficult to bring those things together. So, you remember the map at the front? This is the 28 locations. I can tell you I'm not going to all 28, as much as the weather is lovely in different parts of the world at different times. But let me just try and summarize a couple of points that we talked through in the last 30 or so minutes. Real digital, not PowerPoint, real digital isn't easy. Your peer group around the globe have said it. Our experience tells us that that's the case as well. It's not easy. Okay? Value comes from transforming the data. Not that I've got loads of data, so what? It's how do we transform, how do we use that to make a difference to your business? We believe the way to do that is around co-creation. I'll often say when I'm seeing customers, it's the handshake from Fujitsu across the table. It's not the pen that says sign here. It is a commitment from Fujitsu, whether it's our technology or our services, it's that handshake. We believe that's the best way to come up with solutions and grow our businesses. Our strategy is driven by you. Now, we're spending a lot of time and money thinking about the future, digital annealer, quantum computing, what does the future of expandable AI looks like? That's interesting. But you've got a business to run. How do we bring that to you day to day and week to week? And hopefully outside you'll see some of that. And the final point is digital is distributed. Not evenly, but it's distributed. And how do we make sure together we build that trust? Now, at the very start, I talked about a picture that I really like. And this is the picture. And then you might be saying, why is he showing a picture of an athlete at an event like this? So you know when you talk about how do you leave a picture in somebody's head about the presentation you've just done, this is my attempt at trying to do it. Now, you might say, he's just silly, but just bear with me for a second. 6 muscles. Why am I talking about muscles? The survey said to us, and our experience has said to us, an organization has to learn. Remember I talked about the younger generation and an older generation. How does a company, how does an organization learn? How does it teach itself? How does it get that unconscious competence just to do stuff? Like an athlete does. Gun goes off, I'm off. You're in a car driving, you now don't even think about your gears or traffic lights. So there were 6 things that we think in the survey that came back to us that companies need to have. And I offer it to you as an aid memoir. Top Right, leadership. Remember the survey at the start? Your organisation needs to be clear, as clear as it can be. Your organisation needs to be aligned at the top around what it's trying to do. We need the people, my side too, to understand and to be enabled, to be trained, to be inspired, to be inquisitive. Agility. We all talk about it, but we need to be faster. Hence my thing about how we procure things, how do we engage in things. Very, very important on the agility side. Top left, value from data. You, in all of your businesses, whether you're small, medium or large, public sector, energy, railways, postal, you are creating data. How do we get the most value from that to change the way our society works and employability and sustainability for us? Working with partners, ecosystems. I challenge you, no one company can do everything. We at Fujitsu, working with Intel, working with Microsoft, they're the big guys like us. But the other thing that we do in Fujitsu is work with smaller companies as well. And as you see companies in an ecosystem, you'll see us working with smaller providers, as you do. That's very, very important as your organisation learns. And the final point is business integration. Gone are the days where that's the IT department, that's the finance department, that's the supply chain, that's security. Business integration is essential. And we believe our digital technology centres, our engagements and our investments for the future make a big difference. And hopefully, you might choose to do some of that work with us, because Carlos and the team here in Portugal and my team throughout the rest of Western Europe would be delighted to work with you, Mr. Customer, both existing and new, around how do we shape tomorrow. Thank you very much.